Welcome to the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Cruz. I'm a former brick and mortar store owner turned retail expert who is passionate about entrepreneurship and has experienced the highs and lows of running a retail business. Whether you're a seasoned retail veteran or an aspiring store owner, consider me your guide on this store owning journey. If you're looking to run a profitable and growing business that doesn't drain you, follow my 6 stages of shopkeeping and subscribe to this show. Join me for a journey of continuous learning where protecting your mind, maximizing profit, and determining your own schedule are a priority. Get ready to work smarter, profit more, and grow your retail business. Welcome to episode 248 of the Savvy Shopkeeper Retail Podcast, doing a cost-benefit analysis of extending store hours. I'm your host, Kathy Cruz. So at this point, I am chest deep, not even knee deep, chest deep in all things Savvy Shopkeeper Conference. Ticket sales have closed, so you can't purchase a ticket, but when this episode airs, this one will air on May 8th, we'll be, 10 days away from the conference. Hosting a conference, even a small, intimate one like this, can be incredibly nerve-wracking. But once it all wraps up, I'm always so happy I did it. I'm exhausted, but I'm happy I did it. If you grabbed a spot to our upcoming conference or you won a scholarship, I'm incredibly excited to be hosting you and honored that you chose to listen and learn from me for 2 whole days. My husband's probably wondering, why would anyone want to do that? All joking aside, I think it's important to say thank you, really, and I can't wait to welcome you into my hometown. It's the first time I'm actually hosting a conference in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and I love the idea of it. All right, so let's get started on this episode. At first glance, this might seem like a simple decision. The decision to extend store hours. You might think just stay open a little later and customers will come, right? Not quite. Decisions like this deserve a thoughtful approach, and that's where a cost-benefit analysis can make all the difference. Now, don't worry, this isn't going to be a math-heavy episode. It's not going to be math-related at all, actually. Today, it's more about sharing 5 reasons why doing a cost-benefit analysis can be incredibly helpful for independent retail store owners who are considering this. So go ahead and just sit back on this one, grab your coffee, your favorite beverage, maybe your notebook if you're thinking, yeah, I've been thinking about this, and let's go ahead and dig in. Let's start with the most obvious but sometimes overlooked reason, and that's understanding your true costs. Now, imagine this. You're a gift shop owner and you've been hearing from a handful of customers who say they wish you stayed open later. And a lot of you are going, yes, people say that to me all the time. You think to yourself, maybe I should extend my hours to accommodate them. It's tempting to react right away because you want to please your customers, and maybe the idea of getting more sales is appealing, but have you considered the hidden costs? For example, if you're open 2 extra hours a night, you'll need to pay staff to cover that shift. Or maybe you're working those extra hours yourself, which means more time away from family or your personal life. Then there are additional costs like increased utility bills, lighting, heating, or air conditioning, and even potential wear and tear on your store, which most of us never even consider, but it's worth considering. Reason number 2, aligning with customer behavior. Extending store hours might sound like a great way to serve your customers better, but you need to make sure that it actually meets their needs. For example, I've seen shop owners assume that staying open later will naturally draw in more traffic and generate more sales. But what if your customers are primarily stay-at-home parents who prefer shopping mid-morning? Or maybe your store is in a business district and most of your traffic comes from office workers on their lunch breaks. Extending hours in these cases might not lead to the results that you're hoping for. Now, I can actually use myself as an example here. The store I co-owned with my sister, we started with extended hours. So it's actually kind of the opposite, but I want to share this story because I think it's relatable. And after a couple years, I decided to look at the data. And I actually wrote a blog post on this a long time ago, but we'll link it in the show notes. When I looked at the data, we found that most of our sales happened between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We were open until 6 p.m., and those felt like really long days to us, and no wonder why. I was actually working full time and working at the store. And in those last 2 hours at the store, it got really, really quiet. And you know where our minds go when it gets quiet, right? You're like anxious or you're worried or you're wondering why people aren't coming in. All the things. The lesson, if you don't align your hours with when your customers actually want to shop, you're just spinning your wheels. Reason number 3, evaluating the impact on your team. This is a big one because extending your store hours doesn't just affect your bottom line, it also affects your team. If you have team members, I guess I should say. So let's say you currently have 2 part-time employees who are very comfortable with their existing shifts. If you decide to extend your hours, you'll either need to ask them to work longer, which could lead to, I don't want to say burnout, it's 2 hours, but you know what I mean. Or hire additional staff, which comes with its own set of challenges if those 2 employees don't want to take on the extra hours. Hiring takes time. Training, we all know, takes effort. And there's always a cost associated with onboarding new employees. Now, let's say, for example, this isn't a real story or a real example, but let's say we have Marco, a coffee shop owner, and he decided to open his shop an hour earlier in the mornings to capture the early commuter crowd. Kind of makes sense, right? Especially with a coffee shop. What he didn't anticipate was that his baristas were already struggling to balance their schedules. When he asked them to come in early, morale dropped and turnover increased. Marco eventually had to reverse the decision because it was not sustainable for his team. Now, I want to say this. Some of these things that I'm mentioning doesn't always mean that you shouldn't extend hours. It's just that you need to factor in the impact on your staff and some of these other things that I'm mentioning. A cost-benefit analysis helps you evaluate whether the extra revenue potential justifies the changes you're asking your team to make. This episode is brought to you by the Savvy Shopkeeper Quiz. After years of research and learning from thousands of retailers, I determined there are 6 stages of shopkeeping. But what's more important is knowing the action steps store owners can take during each stage. These steps can help you focus, create efficiency, and improve profitability so you can grow. Take the quiz to find out which shopkeeper stage you're in. Plus, you'll get a helpful and customized list of podcast episodes and 2 free resources specifically for the stage you're in now. I reference the stages often in podcast episodes and when I teach online, so it's helpful to know which stage you're in. Visit savvyshopkeeper.com/quiz to take the quiz. Reason number 4, balancing profitability with work-life harmony. Now, let's talk about you, the business owner. Extending your hours might seem like a great way to increase revenue, but have you thought about how it will affect your own work-life balance? And I have to say this, it's easy for us as entrepreneurs to just ignore what we truly want. And sometimes we want freedom and time off and a break from our businesses. So I just want to make sure that you're considering that because it's not just about profitability. And that's coming from me. It's about understanding what you're sacrificing and whether the trade-offs align with your goals. If extending your hours creates stress or takes away from time with your family or friends, it's worth asking if the extra revenue is really worth it. Reason number 5, avoiding emotional decision-making. Doing a cost-benefit analysis helps you avoid making emotional decisions, and you all know I talk about this all the time. As small business owners, we're often influenced by what we hear from customers, competitors, or even our own insecurities. Maybe you've had those customers that comment that your hours are inconvenient, and now you're worried about losing business or all the business you might have lost because you're not open longer. Or perhaps you've noticed a competitor down the street staying open later, and now you feel pressure to keep up. These situations can make you feel like you have to act, but that's not always the best approach. If you're getting comments from customers saying they wished you were open later in the evenings, I imagine most of you are like, oh my gosh, yes, people say this to me all the time. I always walk by, but you're never open. Frustrating, I know. So I hope that this episode really kind of communicates to you why you need to consider all aspects of this. Anyhow, I don't want you to default to a decision that comes from either guilt or feeling inadequate. It's so easy for us to people please. Instead of people pleasing, or instead of just defaulting to saying, yes, I'm just going to stay open later 5 days a week, that's a lot. Instead of doing that, I hope you consider doing a cost benefit analysis. You might realize that the additional costs far outweighed the potential revenue. Instead, what else can you do? For instance, can you maybe focus on offering personalized shopping appointments during regular hours? Get creative with it instead. This can make your customers feel valued without stretching your resources thin. By grounding your decisions in data and logic, you can feel confident in your choices and avoid unnecessary stress or second guessing, which we do all the time. I want to mention this. If you're in Master Shopkeepers, we have a cost benefit analysis calculator in the lab. It will be linked with this lesson. If the result in the final field of the calculator is positive, then adding hours is financially beneficial. If it is negative, then it's not worth extending the hours. However, remember to consider all the other aspects that I mentioned in this podcast episode. The financial part is just one piece of the equation, but that calculator is one part that I think is important. And I want to mention this too. I had one group member who tested the calculator, and she told me this after she tested it. She said, one thing that makes me pause about adding another day is wondering if it will affect my other days of the week. Will it slow down Wednesday to Friday to a point where the extra hours aren't actually adding the revenue that the calculator says it might? I think that unknown is making me pause. Now, that could be a mindset roadblock, right? But what I appreciated is that she actually considered something else in this. In the end, we don't know until we try. So there you have it. Those are 5 reasons why conducting a cost-benefit analysis is so valuable when you're considering extending your store hours. And I'm just going to recap them because I know sometimes it's helpful to have them summarized at the end. Number 1, it helps you understand your true costs. Number 2, it ensures your decision aligns with your customer behavior. Number 3, it allows you to evaluate the impact on your team. 4, it helps you balance profitability with your personal work-life harmony. And number 5, it keeps you from making emotional decisions. Remember, this process isn't just about numbers, like I mentioned already, and you all know I love the numbers. It's about looking at the bigger picture. In particular, of how this decision will affect your business, your team, and your life. Whether you choose to extend hours or stick to your current schedule, the important thing is that you're making an informed, intentional decision rather than that impulsive, well, everyone's asking for it, so I just need to do it. Or so-and-so is doing it, so I need to do it too. And when it comes to changing hours, there are no guarantees, right? Just like everything else in business, we are testing. That's what we do as business owners. Whether you love it or not, that's what we do. We're constantly testing. And yes, it's okay to test and then change it later. Otherwise, we'll never know. Don't view making a change in your business, whether you go ahead and add hours and then decide it's not worth it and change it. Don't view that as a failure. It's a lesson learned. If you want to see the show notes to this episode or find links to anything I mentioned, visit my blog at savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 248. savvyshopkeeper.com/episode 248. And I'm pretty sure the next episode, 249, will involve some math. I have to think about all the topics I have lined up for the rest of this year. Anyhow, we'll be doing a little bit more with metrics and numbers, but I really hope that this one is helpful to you. And for those of you that are like, Kathy, thank you for reminding me that I don't have to people please all the time. But again, if it makes sense for you, because I do have a one-on-one client that we did this type of work with. And when she actually looked at the numbers part and knew that she had the staff to support it, also knew that she was more than capable and equipped to hire someone else if she needed to, it absolutely made sense. And I would say, I think it was like 2 to 3 months after she sent me an email and said, yes, hands down, best decision. It's been great for my business and my revenue has increased. So you just never know. Until the next episode, be savvy and boss up.